Welcome to the show. And today I'm going to be sharing something that I have been keeping a secret. Well, not a big secret, but it's something that I use in my own marketing as a way to stand out and be a bit different from other people. And let's face it, standing out in terms of marketing and being visible, especially in social media and organic traffic, is very hard to do. And so all sorts of people have lots of different mechanisms and suggestions, and nearly everyone piles on them all straight away. But here is something that not everyone is going to be doing that you could do. And it's really going to be more applicable to you if you have a good sense of humor and your brand can cope with a bit of laughter as well. Not that we're going to be doing anything damaging to the brand, but we're actually going to be utilizing humor as a tool of influence. And if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you'll know that I've talked about humor before as being one of the most overlooked elements of influence that gets missed time and time again. And often people are afraid of it, don't really want to approach it, or that they recognize that humor is important, but they still have some fear around it and will avoid it. So even though we know that it's a great influence tool, there are very few people who apply it well. And my guest today is Adam Hunt. And Adam has a company called White Label Comedy that helps people with brands like speakers and coaches and professional communicators, anyone who has a brand, a service, product, or a company that could use a little bit of standing out with your online marketing and messaging, then you might find this episode to be incredibly valuable. And we are also going to be taking a look into one of the products that I've been using from White Label Comedy for a long time to give you a sense of how you might be able to apply this, help you build up and flex those comedy muscles, and get more people noticing your marketing, having your personality, and certainly that humorous aspect of you standing out even more. So welcome to Present Influence, the show that helps coaches, speakers, and business leaders develop the communication skills to influence and inspire. My name is John Ball, keynote coach, professional speaker, and your guide on the journey to mastery level communication and presentation skills. My mission is to provide professional communicators like you with everything you need to maximize your impact and present with influence. Follow the show on your favorite podcast app for weekly episodes and interviews with influence experts. And if you're not already receiving our weekly blog, you can sign up for that at LinkedIn. So find my profile on LinkedIn, it's in the show notes, and you can get the weekly blog, which will have some introductions to the episodes, as well as some bonus material that you may not hear in the episodes. I'll look forward to connecting with you there. Adam, welcome to Present Influence. I've been so excited to talk to you. You've been on my guest wish list for a long time, and so I wasn't sure you'd say yes when I asked you to come on the show, and it was a very easy yes, so I was very pleased.
Do you know what? It was an easy yes, and it was an immediate yes. Obviously, you're active inside our membership and on our Right With Us calls, and it's a no-brainer. I think really excited to chat today, and you know, where kind of comedy, psychology, marketing, and influence all kind of intersect. Like, that's my favorite subject. So yeah, it would have been very hard to say no to this.
This makes me happy, and this is exactly why I wanted to have you on the show. I'd like to give those, before we really take a look at things like the Brands Against Mundanity and other things that you have available through your white label services, to just start off with like why you feel that humor is so important in terms of being able to influence and have an impact on people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And it's a broad question that I could choose to answer in so many ways. But the simplest answer is that people like being entertained. They don't like being sold to. They don't really like being influenced. And so whatever your agenda with someone persuasively, whether that is to change their mind, change their position, or sell them a product, if you can use entertainment and humor to do it, then you slide under the radar and people are just more willing to listen to what you've got to say.
Yeah. I do have this theory of humor from what kind of my own, but I've listened to some rather long-winded lectures on theory of humor as well. It's a thing, it's out there. And for those who are interested, it's worth checking out. My own theory goes along the lines of that it's one of those things that, like you say, it does bypass things. It does get more direct, but people do tend to just have a deeper level of trust for people who make them laugh. It's automatically this thing. Oh yeah, we disarm ourselves a little bit more. We warm to people more when they make us laugh. I don't think I'm unique in thinking that, but I do think it's one of the really important aspects of humor to be able to use.
I think the trust factor is really important and really useful, but also why that works. It becomes like much more salient when you enter our world, and the way we teach humor, the way we teach kind of entertainment for marketing's sake, is a lot of people think that being funny is just about being funny. It's not. It's about relating to the other person. It's about communicating something that they can relate to in an entertaining way. And so actually it makes so much sense that builds trust, because you're showing that you get it, that you understand their world. You couldn't make a joke about influence if you didn't understand the struggles with trying to influence people. So if you to make a joke about influence, it immediately communicates your expertise, and it communicates that you understand the problem that I'm suffering from, because I laugh at that. You've got my problem nailed. So yeah, it's trust, it's expertise, and it's rapport building. At the end of the day, people, again, I know that I'm always coming at this from in the context of selling. That's not everything you're about. Whether you're buying a product or buying someone's position, people buy from people. And if you can build that rapport by showing people that you get it, then it just changes the game. It's so much more effective than, well, look, I'm not going to say it's more effective than any other form of persuasion. I don't know about all the other ones. I only know about my favorite one. But yeah, I think that's how I see it.
It's sadly one of the areas of influence and persuasion that Robert Cialdini left out of his famous book on the psychology of influence. But I do see it as being one of the critical areas. I don't know if it has quite the same level of impactful influence as things that he was talking about, which is more like immediate effect. But I think it is something that sets you in a certain position to be able to have greater influence and even to persuade. Because I do think, humor and comedy actually allows us to talk about things, sometimes even something, this isn't so much related to the sales side, but talk about things that perhaps are a bit uncomfortable for people, or the viewpoints that express new viewpoints in a way that if you can make people laugh when you introduce it to them. And one of the reasons why I think shows like these comedy news shows, and John Oliver for being an example of that, or the Daily Show, those sorts of things where people can cope with the information and they probably absorb more because they're laughing whilst they watch it.
But I used to love getting all of my news from Have I Got News For You. Yeah. It was that kind of weekly dose of the news wrapped up with humor. And it was, luckily I was so switched off back then, when just about, say 15 years ago, in my youth, and so disconnected from the news cycle. It was really satisfying. And I think there's a lot to be said for humor to package up information. I want to draw on something else you mentioned, because you rightly said Cialdini left it out of his book. And why, so we're launching a new course like right now. We're literally mid-launch, and the angle that our head of copy, Tom, has taken with the pages that are selling it is basically all of the godfathers of copywriting, persuasion, marketing. All of them have basically, in one way or another, said humor sells, and none of them have been able to give anyone a kind of manual for how to use humor. They just go, just be funny. And what I'm so proud of with all the work we do is it's all about making the ability to be funny, be humorous, be entertaining in a way that furthers your messaging, furthers your persuasion, accessible, and something you can actually do. So yeah, it almost felt like you were reading from the Tom's new sales page when you mentioned and not being in Cialdini's book there.
Oh, there you go. I'm glad to be on the right page for things that you're thinking about at the moment as well. There are so many areas of influence and persuasion that Cialdini doesn't look at. And I do think one of the reasons why perhaps this doesn't get looked at as much by psychologists is because it's a little bit out of their comfort zone. Yeah. People who are in the sciences are not always known for being the most humorous people, for example. And so scientific investigations tends to be fairly serious, and comedy probably humor feels a little uncomfortable, which is, I find is the case for many of the people I work with when I help people develop their presentation and communication skills and the keynote speeches. And people are so scared of trying to be funny, think that they can't or that they're not. One of the things I love about what you do, you create that bridge to help them figure out that they can be, and it isn't actually as difficult as they imagine it to be.
Yeah, I think what is really useful in anything that you do is limitations are really useful. When you could do anything, it can be really overwhelming. Years ago, when I might have been trying to be funny, I was working in TV around comedy writers, and all my friends are stand-ups. Maybe I'll have a crack. You get out a notebook and you try and write a joke, but that joke could be about absolutely anything. So it's really overwhelming. It's also really hard to know what to actually say. You haven't invent opinions for yourself to communicate. It's all overwhelming, and there is a real risk of doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing. The second you move trying to be funny into a place with purpose, like marketing, then you're okay. Well, I've got some limitations because I need this funny to further my brand message. So I've got a whole load of guardrails, things that it won't include. And then you start thinking about what does someone want from a piece of humorous content? And again, that it narrows it down and brings it into the middle to the point where you realize that actually all people want from, not all they want, but all you need to do to be funny in the right way is empathize and relate. And we didn't know that when we began this company. I didn't always just go, it's all about relatable humor. We began by doing a mix of the wrong kind and the right kind of funny. And it's the wrong kind of funny. It's not just that it can get you in trouble, it just doesn't land as much. Whereas the right kind of funny, and what's brilliant is the right kind of funny is easier because you're just trying to understand the audience and presenting what the audience thinks, feels, knows, loves back at them in a way that is humorous. I feel like I'm cheating when people hire me to write jokes, or they hire me to hire someone to write jokes. I feel like I'm cheating because it is so simple, but there you go.
Is your background then more in the comedy writing than comedy delivery sort of area?
So yes and no. Mostly no. I was a TV producer, and in those roles, basically, I worked on shows like The One Show and shows like, I'm trying to think of it, various quiz shows and whatnot, as well as the occasional comedy entertainment show like Mock the Week and Having News for You. But loads of my work was on the slightly less funny shows. In that role, your job is to write the script and make it make sense, make sure it contains the meaning it needs to contain. And then if you're lucky, you get a budget for comedy writers to help make it funny. If you're not lucky and there is no budget, either it's a boring show or you manage to make it funny yourself. And there's a little bit of wriggle room in between. But I've never been a comedy writer. I've always been a producer. I've always been a guy that works out what we're trying to do and then brings everyone together to make sure that happens and that works. And I always think that if I'd been an out and out comedy writer, I would never have built this company because I would have been so obsessed with my own comedy writing career. But I'm much more obsessed with using brilliantly talented people to take us in new directions. And actually, like, even just the process we have internally is someone writes the jokes, someone looks at them and thinks about them, and you need those two parts. You can't just sort of do it on your own. I insist that I'm not a comedy writer. Obviously, in the last 5 years, I've written the odd joke. I've signed off tens of thousands of jokes in different ways, shapes, or form. So I'm probably the only person I know that thinks about jokes like I do. And yet, still, I would say, it's not my background. It's just where I've landed.
No, that's perfect. I think probably helps us to know that as well. What was the inception then? Where did you recognize the need and think, I think we should build a business to do this?
Do you want the long answer or the short answer? Do you want the PR polished answer, or do you want the real one?
The real answer. We've got time, so there's no rush.
All right. Back in the day, I was TV producer. Like I said, working on shows like The One Show. I was basically first in line for another series of The One Show, always, and 19th in line for jobs on The Last Leg, etc. If you're listening from abroad, basically, Last Leg is probably the closest thing we've got to a late night talk show in that it's topical comedy studio show. I needed to find a way to make myself more appealing to those other jobs. So all of this began to try and get me into the right rooms in TV. It was always still with one view on TV. We're trying to do just other cool stuff. I began by launching a satirical news website, now long dead, that had what I thought was a really clever business model, because there were two key things that were going to make us stand out. Thing number one, I'd identified that on sites like The Onion and the Daily Mash, there was one joke. It was a joke in the headline, and then the article was absolute guff. It was nonsense. It was just spew. And I was like, I want our articles to be fact, gag, fact, gag, fact, gag. Basically, the same level of quality that you find in Have Got News For You, that level of script. That was my ambition for them. And the other part of it was that I wanted us to create, and we did create, a merch store for fast turnaround comedy merch. Something in the news today, we write an article that goes out. If it does well, you can buy it buy the funny picture on a t-shirt tonight, that sort of thing. I built that and put about 1.5 years into it, making no money, giving all the ad revenue that we made, I'd give out to the writers. We had a team of volunteer writers who were just, collaborating. This big collaboration. It wasn't making any money, but it was a labor of love. And the kick I got out of assessing the pitches, the articles, the jokes, that was the beginning of my brain tapping into this process that we now have as an actual company. After a little while of kicking my head against the wall and thinking, how am I going to make this add up financially? It was a full-time job on top of full-time jobs. I decided to try and pitch to brands, businesses to fund us. Basically, the angle was give us some money, help us grow, and it can be a kind of corporate social responsibility play from you. And we had this big pitch deck that went out to about 90 different big businesses, and all about like us and why we should be supported. And there was one tiny line buried in there that basically was like, oh, we've got these comedy writers, we could do some stuff for you. And it took me pitching that to crickets for a good month or so before I realized that line there, that's the company. That this writer's room that I'd developed of TV level comedy writers who were just collaborating for the joy of something, putting them to use for a brand, a business, that's the company. And so it initially was called, I won't name the particular website, but it was the name of the website white labeled, because the idea is you're white labeling that website's content creators. But within about a week, I realized that actually that then relies on you maintaining the quality of that website so that you have the implied quality of the business. And actually no one needs that. And I didn't have time to be running the website. So we just dropped the name. It became White Label Comedy. And honestly, the rest was history. It was, that's where it came from. And I tell you what, John, you are the first person I've ever publicly on a podcast told that story to. It's not a dark secret, but it's a long story. There's many twists and turns, and you can probably tell the PR'd sales pitch version needs to be shorter to make a persuasive argument. But yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that with us. And let me ask, did it primarily start off as you working with just like doing marketing for particular clients, or did you think, oh no, I think we have a broader market, we can actually create some particular products? That how did it really get launched there?
So it began with an idea, which was just, we've got comedy writers, we know that brands need funny content, and we would pitch ourselves to a blue in the face and try and win work. That was it. It was all about done for you work. And it was obviously with all businesses, first year was, I wouldn't say terrible, but first year certainly was not a big money maker. All the work we got in was through cold pitching, people on LinkedIn and cold email. And it was a full-time job, just saying to people, hey, come and hire my team of comedy writers. The product side of the business came about almost by accident, because early on we had no reputation. These days we have a good reputation, people know we exist, and so it's much easier for us to attract new clients. Back then people were like, who are these people, who are these guys, what even are they? And obviously I had my credentials creating content for brands. It wasn't like I'd never worked for any brands. I'd in amongst the TV work, I'd moonlighted for various brands in content creation roles and marketing roles, but still as a company, we weren't on their radar. So money was running out. Basically, as always, was spending more money on running the company and trying to reach new clients than actually we could afford. There was a deadline, there was a time limit. And I'd seen from marketing circles, lots of people selling courses, trainings, and not just selling them to make money, but selling them to be a kind of essential part of their own marketing process. You sell a training, people take it, enough of them and go on to hire you on a done for you basis. It's a really trodden pathway. And I thought we could do that. Began planning out like this massive, comprehensive, here is everything about how you sell on social using Humour training. And I was like, this is going to take me years to put together. 2, it's probably going to be a bit shit because we at that point weren't the experts we are now. So it didn't quite feel right. But also money was running out faster and faster. We needed to get something to market quickly. There was one kind of half idea that we had sketched out in my notes for the training on the table in my kitchen, the millions of bits of paper sprawled everywhere. That was, what if we could teach people to write jokes using algebraic formula, using fill in the blank templates? Because we'd already begun to really get a sense that the best jokes were the ones that were relatable. So can we codify that relatability and put that as blanks in algebra? And we made that a thing. So we wrote some prompts. I shouldn't use the word prompts these days because people expect to say AI. We wrote some frameworks for simple Twitter jokes, turned it into a product called Brands Against Mundanity. The first iteration was just a PDF. It was just literally a PDF with 48 fill in the blank Twitter jokes. And we put it online, started selling it using Facebook ads, which at the time I didn't even really know much about. I'd never run my own ads before, just dabbled with it for clients. And it just took off. We just sold so many copies of that silly PDF. And even better, people then, as we would have planned for the bigger training that we thought we'd need to make this happen, people bought the PDF, saw us, go, oh, these guys are cool, booked in a call through the very, very rudimentary buttons on the very old rubbish website. And then we're starting to get our first clients in. So it was all stuttering along. And then simultaneously, we were in the product and the done for you business overnight.
Yeah. And even in the time that I think I've been subscriber, I should say, really, to the Brands Against Mundanity, that you've set newer things up. Like we've got the Right For You sessions, which I think were there probably from when I joined, but also that's really helpful, just that we can actually get on a call with you and one of your writers and get some help and some suggestions and a bit of feedback on some of the ideas. We may only go through a handful of them, but it gets you into some momentum and the right way of thinking about it with things, and also to avoid the wrong ways of thinking about it, which is just as important. But things like being able to directly upload everything into Canva so it's all there ready for you to edit, so helpful. I personally love it. I know you can't say too much about specific brands that you've worked with, but have there been like general industries where this has worked better? And because I'm a fan of 2-part questions, what kind of results have clients experienced from working with you?
Yeah, so I think first question, I'll answer the reverse of that, because I often get asked, is there any industry where this won't work, where humor won't work? And I always insist no. But the truth is that industries where you're selling on aesthetic, fashion, etc., you can use humor, but do you need to? Probably not. We're not necessarily going to move the needle for you. I think in terms of industries with particular success, I think that stuff that is broad, that is mass market, it's easier to get results. The reason I say that is, what we do and what we teach is great for B2B. It's great for B2B because of the messaging benefits of basically reflecting your audience's pains in the content that you're creating, shows them you get it. But getting that content in front of them can be hard, it can be expensive. You're either having to grind away on the platforms, being your account yourself, your brand on the platform to get that reach, or you're having to pay for paid ad spend to get the reach you need to make a meaningful difference. With broader brands who are selling, where anyone could buy the thing, right? Anyone could buy the thing. A big soft drinks company or chocolate company, that sort of thing. It's easier to write jokes that almost everyone that sees it will engage with it, interact with it, comment. And so getting the organic propulsion, I don't know if that's the right word, is easier for someone that can speak to a broader audience. As for, I always like to focus more on business outcomes. And that's why actually, even though, Brands Against Mundanity is all about social, we are pivoting now, and internally with our Done For You clients, we're much more interested in taking clients on a full service marketing basis, because actually, this kind of content, whether you use paid spend or legwork to get reach, if you are bringing loads of awareness to a product, a funnel, an offer that reliably converts, then it's like pouring oil on a fire. If you're bringing that attention to a product that doesn't convert, you might get a load of reach, you might get a load of eyeballs, but where's the money? Where's the money in the bank? Yeah. So I'm now much more interested. The first conversation I will have with any new client is, what are we selling? How's it selling? And can we improve that first before we do anything? So I definitely don't think I directly answered your question there, but I said a lot of words that I hope were interesting and useful all the same.
I feel like it mostly did answer my question. I don't necessarily have a follow-on relating to that, but I do want to perhaps talk about, you mentioned about creating these sort of formulas for jokes, which is very much what Brands Against Mundanity does. Like, it's pretty much like you plug in the words as to what best fits. And we're going to take a look at some of that in a moment so people can get a taste. And so for our listeners, you may want to check out some of the YouTube elements of this so that you can actually see stuff. I will put some links in the show notes for you as well. But before we come to that, you mentioned you have a Done For You service. What other things do you have available for people that could help with their marketing to stand out a little bit more?
So basically, we've got a whole range of trainings, tools, templates. So go to whitelabelcomedy.com, and there's a big shiny button that probably says like trainings and templates, or you can just put /store and see all the different things we've got. There's 2 brand new trainings that I'm really excited about, that I think are a great place to start. There's one that launched yesterday called, basically they're all now coming under the Jokes That Sell banner. So Jokes That Sell Funny Facebook Ads is basically taking this sort of fill in the blanks BAM template vibe, but expanding it to actually give you what you need to write full Facebook ads, and give you variations on the hooks and also a bunch of creatives to test. And the reason why I particularly recommend that as a place to start, it's not just that part of the training, but it also comes bundled with an ebook that I wrote that was meant to just be a kind of short couple of thousand words, some sort of tips for media buying in 2024. Just here's how I think about running your ads. And it turned into a sort of epic 10,000 word book. It's not a book, but it's a lot. There's a lot in there, and it basically covers everything that I think you need to be thinking about if you're trying to get your ads, if you're trying to get your products running successfully to cold traffic using paid ads. Because I think the most important thing, I know that people expect me to talk all about comedy and how comedy can help you sell, but you need to get the fundamentals down. You need to get the right offer stack. You need to have something that people are going to buy, and then you can use humor to make that kind of bigger and better. So that's the one thing I would say everyone buy. We've priced it about 20% of what it really should be, because it's going to be our new front end product that we're going to be selling to cold traffic for ourselves. There's also one that we released last month that's on that basically teaches you how to make what we call gag reel videos, one-liner videos of just you reeling off a load of jokes. Buy that, although cards on the table, if you buy the Facebook ads one, you'll get a better deal by just saying yes in the upsells after. So I would go for the Facebook ads training. That's product wise. And then in terms of our Done For You stuff, we're here for everything and the kitchen sink, but the main thing is we don't really start a conversation by you telling us what you want. We start a conversation by you telling us what your problems are, and then we'll work with you to work out how we solve them with copy and comedy.
Great. A lot of my audience are professional coaches and professional speakers, or people who do a lot of professional communication in their work. Could you see the product working well for those, like particularly the Brands Against Mundanity?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Brands Against Mundanity is great for people who know that they need to be churning out to a certain degree social content. They haven't really got the time, the energy to write these long value posts day in, day out. And they want to bring a bit of humor to their content. And BAM helps you, as you've already seen, BAM helps you do that way more quickly way more easily and with better content a lot of the time than stuff you spent hours and hours slaving over. And yeah, so that we've got loads of coaches, loads of B2B solopreneurs, etc. Obviously, it doesn't solve all your problems, but nothing does. If your problem is content, and I want to just get my content created quickly and easily so that I can then focus on running my business, it's a great thing to buy. It's not, we don't sell it with the promise that buy this, you're going to go viral and you're going to get 1 million people signing up to your done for you services overnight, because that's a massive overpromise. But it's a great way to get attention, and it's a great way to create way more content in the time that it was taking you to do it before. And it's funny.
One of the things I often say to clients I work with on improving their speaking skills is that not that they don't have to become stand-up comedians, but if we lose the idea that you actually need to entertain your audience, you're gonna miss out big time. Like, far too much is just serious and data-driven or factual stuff, and people do crave entertainment. They want to be entertained by your content as well, and that's one of the reasons why it particularly stands out. Before we take a look at the actual cards themselves, I wanted to ask, do you ever get to see any of your stuff out in the wild, like stuff that you haven't all created yourself and had your team done, whether you actively look for that and you sort of think, oh, they're doing a good job with it, or, ooh, I don't think they quite got it?
So do you mean in terms of the stuff that our team creates for a done for you client, or the stuff that we see?
The stuff that people are creating with the templates that you give, do you ever get to see any of that in actually out in the world and thinking, yeah, that's going well?
We do. I think what I love is that obviously we've got our monthly Write With Us sessions where people will bring, either they bring stuff they've already worked on or they work on it in the room. But even with that, the sort of first month someone's with us, the jokes they pitch, as you'll have seen from those calls, can often be a bit confusing and a bit misguided, and they've misunderstood the brief. Especially a lot of people will sign up, buy the thing, look at the templates, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to watch that really easy to watch half an hour quick start training. I'm just going to get on with it and do it. And then they've just missed the brief entirely. And we do occasionally see that kind of stuff out in the wild. For a while, one of our teams had a sort of a weekly task to search for various terms that we knew were in our templates, just to try and find examples. And we used to find examples of great uses. There was a mechanical keyboard company that we didn't even know had signed up, who were getting great use and great results out of our stuff. And you find terrible uses. I say terrible, not terrible, just kind of stuff that doesn't quite hit the mark. But generally, once someone has been flexing those comedy muscles for long enough, they get used to doing it right. And I think the best thing about those Write With Us sessions is it's a chance to come unstuck. It's a chance to, like, the biggest mistakes I see are people will often try and crowbar their product into a joke and trying to make their product the punchline of the joke. So that's not true. Like, often the formula won't make sense if you're trying to crowbar that in, but also, even if it would make sense, you can only crowbar your product in if that is really what your audience is thinking in that particular moment of time. Probably that'll be easier for us to think about when we're looking at some specifics. Like, Starbucks could probably write a joke that, imagine a meme with someone just looking absolutely exhausted, lying on a desk. They could easily make a rather lame meme that's me before my matcha latte, my what's their one, pumpkin spice latte. They could do that because that is true for their audience. You could not do me before listening to this month's Present Influence podcast, because it's not true. Forgetting that the truth is the most important thing, and if you haven't bothered to find the truth, then you're not going to create content that's going to engage. But yeah, I'll waffle on for days, but I generally don't go looking for BAM content myself now, personally, because I will find, if I see something that I think, oh, they've missed the point, I want to then reach out and help them out. And with the best one in the world, you're paying me a couple of quid a month, and I haven't got time for that. But yeah, that's why the Write With Us calls exist anyway.
Yeah, I did actually see today on Instagram. I was trying to say I don't use Instagram very much, but I did actually see an ad that looked like a Brands Against Mundanity kind of based thing, but they had done exactly what you just talked about of trying to make their product the punchline, and it just didn't make sense. And I've seen this on, I think I've been guilty on it on the Right With Us call as well, of trying to make it more about the brand and the promotion than about the joke. And I think you do have to go for the humor and, like you said earlier, the connection, the empathy, and the relating to your audience. I think that's a perfect point for us to take a look at some of the Brands Against Mundanity things. So we're going to be,
do you know what, John? Before we look at the cards, I want to help sow a seed that can solve that problem of trying to make it about the brand, make it about the offer, because the cards in Brands Against Mundanity teach you to write a joke that is mostly going to be in the creative of your post. That's the image, right? But you still have a lot of real estate. You have the post copy. And if we think about the creative as usually, not every format, but usually relating to the pain that we're going to offer to help them solve later on. So usually if you're trying to coach people to be more confident speakers, say, then it might be jokes about the pains of public speaking, the fears of public speaking. And if you try and get your pitch into that creative, it's going to ruin it. But it's really conceivable to have the copy that begin, PAS, problem, as you say, solution. So have the copy begin with the pain that you're talking about, and then just everything below the fold can be taking us on a journey to the point where it is relevant to pitch your products and services. That blurs the line a little bit, because they'll become more like offer posts or belief shift posts. But if in doubt, use the joke to open a conversation. For some people, that conversation is opened in one piece of content and then resolved in a later piece of content, or through retargeting, or ads or emails. But if you're just itching to go, I just really want to talk about what I'm selling, just chart a course from A to B and make sure the copy takes you on the journey that makes sense.
so that's really helpful. And I think that's a great way to think about it. What you are hopefully seeing on the screen right now is my portal into the White Label Comedy site. And so within that, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff that I have purchased from them, or some of the things that were included and add-ons as well. However, it's the Brands Against Mundanity monthly subscription that we want to take a look. Now, we are at time of this episode, at time of release, this is now March, but we recorded this back in November. So it gives you some idea of some of the time that tends to happen between episodes. So we need to go all the way back to November 2024. So we can go back in time, because I've been a member of White Label for a while. So any period that you've had membership with White Label, you can go back and access those cards. So if they're ones that you didn't use, or you want to go back and maybe update them, refresh some of the ideas that you've had before, you can certainly do that. We're going to take a look at November 24. What you'll see here is we can either download a PDF, or we can access Canva templates. I can't remember when the Canva thing came in, but since I have a Canva membership and I do recommend it, it's so easy that the templates just get loaded automatically into Canva, and I can start editing them straight away. It takes moments, so super easy. So here we now come to some of the templates that are available for you, that were available back in November.
Yeah. So this, like John said, this is inside the portal. Basically, every month we release a new set of fill in the blank frameworks that each one of them basically has a joke mocked up as if it were being posted by a big name, recognizable brand, to give you just a sense of how to use it. But really, all of the magic, all of the power comes from the bit on the right-hand side, the instructions, the way we fill in the blanks. This one here, the example that would be from Pact, how to catch a coffee snob. And it's a mousetrap with espresso on top. By the way, if you don't get that joke, you are the enemy, and it's fine. We don't need to be friends. You can carry on drinking your espresso until the cows come home. The framework, how to catch X. So X is either your audience or a recurring character in their lives. For me, it could be how to catch a marketer, or it could be someone that we don't like, or that gives us problems, like how to catch a Facebook ads manager, or whoever's giving your audience trouble that day. And then Y, so Y being the blank that's on top of the cheese, is something that the recurring character X might struggle to resist. And that could be something that they are known to really enjoy, or it could be something they might respond really negatively to. If, imagine, I don't know, if we're in the sort of Facebook ads world, how to catch a Facebook ads manager, it could be 10x ROAS on there, because that's what they want. And generally, that would be a positive example, and they're less funny. So it's always more funny to have a negative. So ideally, we should pick an enemy, and then we throw something in there that they hate. So yeah, there's 31 of these in here.
Yeah. Would this one work for people who are speaking? Would be like how to catch a bad review?
Yeah. So I guess is it how to catch a bad reviewer or how to catch a bad?
Oh, we could make it a reviewer. We can make it a person. How to, yeah. I'd go with that.
It's funny actually, because before we did the last Write With Us session, Alex who's the comedy writer that I usually have with me in the sessions, he said, Adam, can you not put this one in the deck for the call? Because actually I find it really hard and it keeps confusing people.
It is tough. It is tough.
I may struggle to do this justice for you, John, without Alex, but I think the way I would play with it is, so we need to think of an enemy. So if the enemy is a bad reviewer, why are they bad? Are they lazy? What's the and what is it they do that annoys us? Yeah, if we can think around there, and we may find the right answer. We may not. There's not always the perfect answer for any framework.
Yeah, that's something I would say is that I do find I'm not always able to use all of the templates. However, there's always enough there that I can, that I don't need to worry too much about that. I think there's one here, if I look a bit further down, I think there's probably one here that I have already used. One that's like, signs you're a fiction writer. I was able to turn it into signs you're a professional speaker. It's like a pie chart with the small pie being you write fiction, and the big part of the pie being your Google search history implicates you have multiple homicides. I think that's a bit easier for me to do some sort of version of playing that around with. So certainly some of them I think, the solution comes pretty quick, and some of them do take a bit more work. And I do tend to, when I'm going through it, and I like to spend pretty much a morning. And I will say this, I don't resent doing my marketing when it's making me laugh. When I'm coming up with jokes, I enjoy doing my marketing, which is one of the reasons why I like the BAM packs as well. That I'll go through it, and I'll tend to just write. If I get stuck on one, I'll come back to it later and go through and see how many I get. And then ones that I get stuck on, I might revisit later, depending on how many I'm able to fill in. So it's quite an easy process.
I think so. The ones that are the easiest are the ones where what you would put in gap A doesn't change depending on what you've put in gap B. Signs you're a fiction writer, you write fiction, and then you've got one funny thing to add in. Signs you're a podcast host, you host podcasts. That's always going to be the case. So that's written for you. And then the big one, I don't know what you've got in yours, but something like you spend 18 hours a day rebooting Riverside Studio to try and make it work. That would be my truth for you.
That's a little close to home there. Adam has been having some problems with our platform today. But yeah, mine was the small part of the pie being you speak at events, the bigger part of the pie being you expect everyone to be quiet when you're speaking.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Which I think works.
I think that's great, because that's taking what's happening in their world in a day-to-day way and expanding it into other arenas of their life. And that's making it bigger too. And if we think about that compared to the one that we struggled with, the cheese, the mousetrap one, the reason I would say with enough time, we'd crack that. But what you need is two lists side by side of the people that could be the recurring character, the thing that they do that is going to trap them, the kind of, or the thing that would trap them. And then you play around with different combinations of those two until you have one that fits. And the added layer here, which is tricky, is it needs to make sense. It needs to make sense as a thing you'd put on a trap for that person. So it always takes a bit more work. So we always have some kind of pro level ones that even Alex struggles with. And then we have the easy ones to fill in.
Yeah, which is a great way to think about it. I think my favorite one of this pack was the one that looks like it, where it says sensitive content on there, like the things you get over certain posts that blur it out.
Yeah.
And it's a mock-up for a Pizza Express ad that says this post has been hidden in case it reminds you of the time your waiter said enjoy your meal and you replied you too. Which is great. And so my version of that was this post has been hidden in case it accidentally reminds you of the time you live streamed your coaching session.
Yeah.
For my coaching podcast. So There's something that was really easy, and I think that was my favorite one, and it just came straight away. But yeah, some of them definitely take a bit more
I think
work.
what I love about that one is, as well as having the joke, which is, you know, taking an embarrassing occurrence and making it out to be a kind of so sensitive it needs that content warning, it's got that element to it where it draws you in because you think, oh, there's something controversial here. What? It's the bait and switch just with the format, even before you've written the joke, is a bit of a kind of hook to draw you in. And then, yeah, all it takes is a playful, embarrassing moment that either people can relate to or that they can relate to the fear of happening. Even if you've never done that, I guarantee you're scared of doing that. And yeah, it's a great little format.
I'm a big fan of the cards. I've been subscribed to them for a long time and find them very useful. I get a lot of positive feedback from people. They do notice it, and they notice that, you know, they like my messaging, they like the stuff that I'm posting, and they comment because it makes them laugh. I really like the Write With You sessions as well, where you and Alex are usually on the call, and you help guide us with how to write some of these. Do you generally pick out the tougher ones to help people with on that call? Is that kind of the theory there?
So what we normally do is we will start with a couple of easy ones to ease everyone in, because actually you've got to give people confidence. You've got to make sure that they believe they can do it. So start with a couple of easy ones. And then after that, actually, we choose ones that we want to use in our marketing. I will choose, if I want to sell BAM with a video of me and Alex riffing on a bunch of formats, I will choose the sensitive content warning because it looks good in an ad. I will choose. So that's why you generally, and the ones that look good are also often the most complicated. So that's why we generally have a couple of easy ones and then some of the more unique, complex ones. And I think the mixture of that also really just the progression from people where they'll come the first time and they're just a bit lost and they're pitching stuff that doesn't quite make sense or work. And then 3-4 months down the line, even with the really hard ones, they're pitching stuff that just absolutely nails it. And I think it's good to have a mix.
And it's very true about flexing your comedy muscles. When you get into a certain way of thinking, it does start to get a little bit easier. I particularly like that it's very easy to use. People can just go through it. You have the help. You can be live on the call with you and Alex, or you can watch the replay and it's like 45 minutes and it's not going to take a huge amount. And that will still help you even if you can't get onto those live calls. What would be your message for somebody who's still thinking, oh, this seems interesting, I'd like to have a play around with it? What's the best thing for them to do?
Well, the message is buy it, man. It's look, it's $3 for the first month. And when you spend those $3, you get immediate access to the month we're currently in and the next kind of 4 months. So basically, if you were to sign up on the first week of November, you'd immediately get access to all of November and the next set that's just released, the December sets. So try it on for size. We deliberately make it a no-brainer because you do, with this sort of thing, you need to see it to understand how easy it is. You need to get your hands dirty. You need to join us on a call. So yeah, just go to whitelabelcomedy.com/store. Follow the links from there to any of the stuff we sell, but definitely the Brands Against Mundanity monthly itself is the perfect way to start flexing your comedy muscles for very little financial investment and just a tiny bit of time investment. And then you'll see how easy it is to have fun with your marketing.
I think that's one of the things I love about it. Like, you can pretty much set up a whole month's worth of posting with just a morning or an afternoon set aside to spend a bit of time working on this. It's a nice low-level commitment to actually come up with stuff that, you know, a team has already been working on this stuff. You have a lot of help to help get you over there. And as you do more of it, it is going to get easier. We talked about one quick question really about, and we'll start to wind things up, I promise, is about actually using these in post. Is it better to just post these standalone, or is it okay to post these with like some paragraphs or some stuff attached to it that doesn't necessarily relate directly to the joke itself?
So that depends on your objectives, what you're trying to achieve with the given post. But in general, so there's a free training on our website that you'll find quite easily called the Social Success Machine. Basically, that teaches the model that we work to with organic content. That basically, the way we look at it is there's 3 different types of posts. You've got entertain posts, they're at the top of the funnel, and that's what BAM Monthly is teaching you to create. So that is, here's a joke in an image, and you want to have a line of post copy or 2 lines, but you don't want to be selling anything, and you want to just make it support the joke, give people a reason to engage in that kind of content. Further down the funnel, we've got what we call belief shift and offer posts, and they are much more salesy, but they often can still have a joke in the creative. So actually, what you could really easily do is you write all your jokes and you go, these ones feel great for entertain posts, quick and dirty, bit of fun. I'm just going to write a question that goes with this one, put it out there. These 3 feel really like they're making a really important point about the pain that I'm here to release people from. I might turn those into longer form posts. I might just try and shift the belief and persuade them of something. I might try and pitch my services. So as long as you're not adding walls and walls of text to all of your posts, then play it by ear. I think the most important thing is to have those different content pieces in the mix. So if you just post jokes, no one's got any paths to follow to give you any money. If you only have really heavy-handed pitches, even if they start with a joke, it's easy to ignore them. And I'll pick on the element of your question that is important there as well, is can you put text in there? Can you put copy in there that is slightly related? And I would say yes, but start where the joke ends. So if the joke is about the pain of not having this problem solved, start there and then write from there. And what you shouldn't ever do, I have seen some people, you mentioned earlier, posts in the wild. I've seen some people put the same identical copy and paste block of text and block of hashtags on all their posts. And it makes people reading it think you're not really paying attention and you don't really care. So long as you write around them, and then sometimes you'll be inspired to write an essay. Other times you'll be inspired to just put a kind of thoughtful emoji as, play it by ear.
I just love that you've made this so easy for me particularly, but for everyone really as well. And I've been a big fan of Brands Against Mundanity for quite some time and love playing with it. And I feel a bit like I'm giving away one of my secret tools that I like to use, but I'd be happy to see other people doing this. And frankly, I think there's enough scope because you're going to have different answers, different jokes, different things, but I'm probably going to post stuff on different days as well. I'm not too worried that timelines are going to get flooded with copies of very similar things, but I'd love to see it. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for anyone who wants to go and check this out, or go to whitelabelcomedy.com/store. You said you can get started. £3 a month is almost nothing to at least have a go with this and have a play and doing something that's going to, I think, make your marketing stand out probably a bit more than most other people do. Adam, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for bearing with all the technical issues we had today. We managed to get through it, and you helped us to fix all that up as well. Really appreciate you today and everything that you shared. Is there any final message that you have that you'd like to share with everyone?
Yeah, buy our stuff. I'm having a baby. I need to buy some nappies.
I would never even have guessed that you were pregnant. But
yeah, if I stood up, you'd understand. But no, do you know what? The main takeaway I want to leave with people is one of the notes that I will give on pretty much any piece of content that I look at that isn't right is don't try and be funny, find something worth saying, and then use humor to communicate that. If you don't invest the time working out what to say, you're wasting your time. So even though we're all about comedy, you need to be all about marketing, and then comedy is going to make your marketing better. Jokes on their own don't sell anything. They just help things that already sell more.
Yeah, that's great. So basically don't half-ass it, but if you're a kind of half-ass person, maybe just get you to do it all for them, and that's going to solve that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we love half-assers with budget. We love half-assers with budget for sure.
That's fair enough. I think we all do. Adam, thanks so much for coming and being a guest on Present Influence.
Thanks, Sean.
If you do follow me on any of the social media platforms, you probably will have seen some of my funny posts that come up from time to time. Maybe some of them are funny, maybe you find some of them aren't. Comedy can be a little hit or miss, but I do still think it's a great way to stand out, have a little bit of playfulness, enjoy the process of marketing. It really does need to fit with your brand. I think Adam gave some good advice on that. Maybe there are some brands that it's not going to work with, but I think for most coaches and speakers and people who have products and services online, it could probably work for you. so long as it kind of fits with your personality to some degree. So if you are one of those people who always avoids humor on stage and in your presentations, maybe it's time to dip your toe, or maybe this just isn't for you. I would understand. But I'm assuming as you have got to the end of this episode, you're probably at least a little bit interested in that. And I hope you will go and check out all the many options available at Adam's website, whitelabelcomedy.com. I've been using Brands Against Mundanity for probably the last 2 or 3 years on and off, and find it to be an incredibly useful resource that helps me to have fun doing my marketing. And it does get noticed online, and I do get people commenting, laughing. That's a very nice way to stand out sometimes. So this can be a really great addition to your online marketing if you'd like to go and check out Brands Against Mundanity, funny Facebook ads, and all the other products that Adam has available, or maybe have his team working with you, more of a done-for-you service, take even more of the effort out of this and have funny standout social media properties that could really help to turn up, get you noticed, and build your influence. That's pretty much it for me for this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about demo reels. My guest will be Cam Bodwin, and Cam is an expert in demo reels. We'll answer questions like, is it better to have a bad demo reel than no demo reel at all? What does a professional level demo reel need to include? We're going to be talking about that on next week's episode. So if you are a professional speaker, or you want to be a professional speaker in any way, shape or form, you can't afford to miss that. If you're not already following the show, make sure you are. But wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, have an amazing rest of your day. See you next time.